Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Transform Yourself. This is episode 5, May the 1st. What's been good with you this past month? What have you been enjoying? Have you had some positive actions? Have you been mowing the lawn and getting out in the garden? Have you had some positive interactions with friends and family? And have you been doing some positive thinking and looking forward to things? Maybe you've booked a holiday. Or maybe you've been looking to the past and thinking about all the wonderful memories that you have. For me, it's been the interactions. And I want to shout out to all of my friends and my sisters, my 2 sisters, who are always there for me. It's important to have a network of people and to lean on them when you need to and let them lean on you. And so, thank you all for all that you do for me. Today, May 1st, is also my son's birthday. He's living out in Minneapolis. He's 22 today, so happy birthday, Jesse. I love you. So let's get on with today's subject of overwhelm, burnout, and all of that stress that we experience. There are 2 kinds of stress. There's the motivational stress that moves us forward, that makes us want to do better and want to achieve. Perhaps it's the competitive spirit or the drive for self-development and improvement. All of that is really good stress because it does move us forward and motivates us. However, there's also the stress that does the opposite and stops us from being our best selves and living our best lives because it's just too much and we can't process it. When we are stressed in that capacity, we're not releasing all of the coping chemicals that we need to move forward. Do you remember all the way back to episode 1 when I talked about the brain, the 2 different parts of the brain? I'm going to give you a quick reminder of that because it's really important to understand how stress impacts us. We have 2 parts to the brain. We have the upstairs in our brain, which is known as the left prefrontal cortex, which is our conscious brain, and it's attached to the intellectual brain, which is the part of our brain that has evolved over time. It allows us to be creative, it allows us to problem solve, and it allows us to make choices. But we also have an original primitive part of our brain that is very much but we also still have an original primitive part of the brain. This part of the brain hasn't evolved at all, and we share it with animals and our primitive ancestors. This part of the brain is our survival centre. It keeps us alive, and it's very dramatic because it is life and death down there, and it's always negative. It always sees things from the worst possible perspective because it tries to keep us alive. But this part of our brain doesn't understand the nuances of modern life, and so any kind of stressor is seen as a life and death situation. When we are stressed or when we're worried or when we're anxious, we are living in this primitive part of our brain, which means that everything is negative and we are releasing stress hormones. If we can move our thoughts to being more positive, we move from the primitive part of our brain to the intellectual part of our brain, which is where we can make proper decisions because it always assesses things appropriately up there. And it also allows us to release our coping chemicals, which allow us to manage our lives better. And how do we move from the downstairs primitive brain into the upstairs intellectual brain? We have 3 Ps: positive action, positive interaction, and positive thinking. So when I ask you at the beginning what's been good, it's to help you release the coping chemicals and move you into the intellectual part of your brain where it's more positive. When we think, act, or interact positively, we release coping chemicals that allow us to cope better with day-to-day life. And when we're releasing coping chemicals, we're not releasing stress hormones, which are the ones that make you feel really anxious, make your heart rate increase, your stomach churn, and make you feel very antsy, like you can't keep still, or you have things racing through your head and you can't sleep at night. When you're acting, thinking, and interacting positively, you're not putting any additional stresses into your stress bucket. Your stress bucket fills up during the day. Sometimes there are things down in the bottom that perhaps we haven't dealt with. But we often put things in there that don't really need to be in there, like worrying about the future or worrying about things we've done in the past. We can't change the past and we can't predict the future. So all of that worry and anxiety is empty and pointless and goes into your stress bucket every day, and then you have to empty it every night through your sleep. If you remember, we empty our stress buckets during the REM sleep cycle, which is your dream cycle. So we only want to put stresses in our bucket that actually need to be there, not the imaginary ones where we're thinking about the past or thinking about the future, only the things that actually impact us in reality. An important thing to know about your brain is that it doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality. It doesn't know what's real and what's not real. So if you're imagining bad things can happen, your body is going to have that stress response. If you're imagining that things will go well, you're having the response of the release of serotonin and all of those wonderful coping chemicals that will make you feel better and make you more able to cope. It's also important to note that we all have different sizes of stress bucket. Some of us have stress buckets the size of a skip. We can throw loads of stuff in there and still be coping. Some of us don't have stress buckets that big. Sometimes we have stress buckets the size of a thimble, which means that only a little bit needs to go in there before we're overwhelmed. This is not judgment at all. We all exist in different ways and we all have different stress bucket levels, and so we have to work with them. But what can happen with us is that they overflow. If we've got too much in there, it overflows, which means that it's going to be very difficult to empty all of it in one night's sleep. During REM sleep, negative experiences are moved from your primitive brain into your intellectual brain, where all of the negativity and the sting is taken out of them, which means that when you wake up in the morning, you're not bothered by them anymore and your stress bucket is emptied. But this only works if you haven't got too much in your stress bucket and you are actually getting quality sleep. If you have too much in your stress bucket, you're not going to empty it all in one night, because REM sleep is restricted to somewhere between 15 and 25% of your sleeping every night, depending on your age. So if it's overflowing, you're going to wake up and you're still going to have stress in your stress bucket, which means you're going to wake up feeling rubbish. You're going to feel tired and still feel overwhelmed. And then you have more stress to put into your bucket when you get up and start your day. This is really not a very nice place to be. And I believe that we've all been there at some point in our lives where it's been too much and we've just not been able to empty our buckets, either because we've got too much in there or because we're not getting quality sleep. So what I do for my clients is I help them to have better sleep, and I help them to develop habits that allow them to not put too much into their stress buckets in the first place, so that their stress levels become manageable. I give my clients an audio recording to listen to every night as they're going to sleep. As listeners to this podcast, you get a relaxation session every month. So you can choose whichever one works for you depending on your circumstances. It might be that you like the recording in episode 1. Keep using it, go back to it, program it so that you can use it for yourself every night as you go to sleep. You don't have to listen to each one, although each one has its own particular structure and purpose. You can listen to them during the day, but you can also listen to them every night as you go to sleep. And what your brain will start to do is associate the music, my voice, and the words with relaxation. It will cut out all the chatter in your head and give you the opportunity to drift off, which is what we want. And to make sure that my clients are not putting too much in their stress buckets in the first place, we do our what's been goods. We look for ways to incorporate positive action, positive interaction, and positive purpose, positive thinking into their lives on a regular basis. So this becomes a habit. I always recommend to my clients that every day they look for 2 or 3 good things that have happened, whether they be big or small. Sometimes it's as small as I got out of bed, I took a shower, I had a lovely cup of tea, someone smiled at me as I walked to work. These things still produce your coping chemicals, so even the small things do really matter. And it means that the clients start to look for them in their day-to-day routines, because life is never all good and it's never all bad. If you can train yourself to look for the good things, even in the worst times, you give yourself an opportunity for a little bit of a reprieve from all of the negativity. Now, sometimes life dumps on us from a great height, and we end up with far more that we can cope with. And it's not because we're creating the stress by thinking about the past in a negative way or negatively projecting into the future. Sometimes we just end up with life stresses that come at us from unknown places and we have no control over it whatsoever. This is where we end up with burnout and overwhelm, because we can't control the levels of stresses that we're getting in our lives, but we have to try and find ways to cope with them. In these cases, we might turn to coping strategies which are not particularly healthy for us. For example, eating too much or drinking too much, or not eating at all, or working too hard and trying to ignore things. I know when I was younger, that was my coping strategy. If I had stress, I would just work and work and work, because then I didn't have to think about the problem itself or deal with it. And that just added to the burnout and made me feel pretty rubbish. So in my older years, I don't do that anymore. Often responses to bullying can be things like eating disorders, restrictive eating of one kind or another, because it gives us control in a time in our lives where other things are beyond our control. This isn't healthy. And we develop patterns of coping. So if what we did yesterday kept us alive, for example, if we did drugs and it kept us alive and helped us with stress, we'll be encouraged to do it again. Our primitive brain isn't a thinking part of our brain. It simply goes to what we've done before. And so then you end up with habitual coping strategies that are not very healthy and not very helpful to you and don't really alleviate the stress, but actually add to it. Some of us will start to cry. And this is actually very therapeutic, because the initial start of crying starts in the primitive part of your brain, because it introduces stresses that make your heart rate increase and bring you to the point where you need to have the release of tears. But towards the end of the crying, you get the release of the coping chemicals and you get the relaxation and the calm as a result of it, which is why crying is therapeutic and that it does help alleviate stress. We know when we're overwhelmed or burned out because we just can't take any more. And so what do we do with that situation when we're faced with stresses that we can't control, but we have to deal with in some capacity? I had a client who, in a 2-year period, lost a parent, lost a relationship, lost a house, and was estranged from her family. Now, any one of those things would be quite a significant stressor, but all of this happened one after the other in a 2-year period for her. We looked at what she could control within these stresses and what was beyond her. So we focused on trying to do things that would alleviate the stress with positive action towards it. For example, she made some movements towards her family to try and re-establish relationships. She found a new place to live. She found a way to enjoy being on her own for a while so that she could heal from the loss of the relationship and grieve the loss of her parent. She couldn't change the fact that she'd lost certain things in her life, but instead of focusing on the loss, we focused on the gain, on the things that she could gain. Now, this is not ignoring the pain and the difficulty, and sometimes she had to sit with the pain and the grief. The loss of relationship is a grieving process, as well as the loss of a parent and family. So she had to sit with it and know that it was temporary, that it would come and go, and that while it was there, it was better not to mask it, but just to sit with it and experience it, and then look forward and to try and find ways to release the coping chemicals through the positive action, positive interaction, and positive thinking. So when she started to think about the relationship, for example, and think about what she did wrong and what she could have done better, she learned how to reframe those thoughts and think about what she learned and what she could gain from the relationship going forward, perhaps into a new relationship. And in that way, she learned to heal and developed healthier coping strategies for the very difficult things that she'd experienced in her life. She couldn't change what had happened, but she could change how she responded to what happened. She couldn't stop the grief of the losses, but she could change how she responded to the grief. Rather than hiding it or trying to ignore it, she lived with it, experienced it, and found ways to make it better. Exercise for her was very good. She went to yoga, and that helped her a lot. And also, she made change where she could make change in order to live her best life. Did it happen overnight for her? No. Did it take persistence and consistency? Yes, it did. When we're changing our brain, which is what she was doing, creating new habits changes our brain. It takes time. For some people, it's quicker than others, but it won't happen for anybody overnight unless it's a quick fix. So in order to make reasonable and permanent change, we have to work at it and chip away at the old habits as we develop the new ones. So it also requires patience in the process and patience with ourselves also. For some people, delving into the past is important and understanding what happened in the past. And that's not something that I do with my clients in solution-focused hypnotherapy. We tend to look to the future and how the future can be better for us. And we develop healthy coping strategies and avoid the negative emotions and experiences that are going to add to our stresses without any need for them to be there. Guilt, shame, all of these emotions, while they are natural in us, we can stop them in their tracks by reframing our thought processes and thinking, well, I did the best I could with what I had at the time, and I'm going to forgive myself for being human. And even in the darkest of days, if you can find one small thing that is good in your life, you're going to release the coping chemicals which are going to make it better Even if it's only temporarily, it's a small sparkling moment that gives you a little bit of relief in amongst the stress. Isn't that better? And of course, self-care is very important at times like this, where we focus on ourselves and don't put additional stresses into our buckets so that we can focus on the stresses that we have already and deal with those. But to look after ourselves in the process, be kind to ourselves, do things that make us feel good, whether that be reading a book, taking a bath, getting our nails done, talking to friends and family and not hiding away, sharing the experiences, or not even talking about the problem at all, which is even better. Talking about happy things, good things, again, will release all of those coping chemicals and make you feel better. Even laughter in the darkest of times can really, really help. People who work in very high stress situations, for example, I had a friend who worked in live television news where they had to report on all sorts of horrible things. They had what was called graveyard humour, where they'd make jokes out of things that seemed highly inappropriate. But what that is a coping strategy. If you can laugh, you're releasing the coping chemicals to help you manage the difficult things that you're seeing or having to experience. So finding a way to laugh, looking at your favourite comedian, remembering a joke that somebody told you, laughing at yourself also can really help in these situations. And it might seem counterintuitive and at times inappropriate, but it is a fantastic coping mechanism. And that's why we have graveyard humour, because laughter can alleviate the hard things. Our brains really like metaphors. Metaphors are a way of comparing one thing to another in an indirect way. For example, often if we feel stressed, we feel like there's a weight on our shoulders. And if we can imagine lifting the weight off our shoulders, we can alleviate some of the pressure. Our brains really like this. And so the relaxation today is going to focus on the metaphor of weight and how we can lift it and how we can do that in a way that makes us feel lighter, more relaxed, and more able to rest at the end of the day or in the middle of the day if you're taking a break from work or life. So this is the time where you find yourself somewhere comfortable to sit or lie down. Make sure that you can take at least 20 minutes to just relax, that you're not doing anything, you're not trying to drive somewhere. It's not a good idea to be driving and being that relaxed at the same time. Get yourself a blanket if you like, because when we're relaxed, we sometimes drop in body temperature. Make sure that you're nice and comfortable. You can close your eyes if you want to, but you don't have to. You can even carry on doing things like playing on your phone. Maybe you like to doodle or draw or colour while this is going on. Doesn't have to be absolutely still, lying down with your eyes closed. It will work just as well if you're engaging your conscious brain in something else completely. So make yourself comfortable. Get yourself a nice, comfortable spot. And when you're ready, I'll begin. This is your time. This is a time out of your day to relax, rest, and recharge either for the rest of the day or to help you sleep. Make sure that you're nice and comfortable. Move yourself until you're in the perfect spot. Cover yourself with a blanket or not. Close your eyes or leave them open. It's absolutely your choice. You're going to do whatever makes you feel comfortable and restful as you listen to my voice, listen to the music, and find a little bit of respite in this day. Imagine that you're in a beautiful garden. You're sitting on a swing in a beautiful garden. slowly moving backwards and forwards on the swing, and feeling a slight breeze as you do that. It's not cold, it's very, very comfortable. Not too hot, not too cold, just perfect. As you rock, swinging on the swing, backwards and forwards. And as you're doing that, you're looking out onto the garden, and you can see the most beautiful green grass and all of the flowers along the borders of the grass. Beautiful colours, there's bright pinks and reds and blues, all perfectly balanced against the green of the lawn. It's absolutely gorgeous. There's some roses there too, and you can smell the fragrant roses. Just so beautiful. These are white roses, and they smell so wonderful. And you can also hear the birds chirping. All of the little birds that are chirping away, just creating this very, very tranquil scene. So beautiful, so calming, so peaceful. You can't hear anything else but just natural sounds. The birds, maybe there's a bumblebee in the distance, not too close, not too worrying. In the distance. No voices, no traffic, just you and this beautiful tranquil moment. You can hear the doves cooing. Maybe there's a woodpecker as well that you can hear tapping away at a tree bark. It's all totally tranquil and comfortable. And as you're sitting there, you feel your muscles start to relax. So instead of holding your shoulders high, they start to drop a little bit. And the muscles in your legs start to relax. And you might even put your feet up on the swing and just enjoy the relaxation, maybe make yourself even more comfortable. And all of the tension in your neck starts to disappear, and you feel a bit lightheaded as a result, so you might want to lie down on a pillow. But all of this is just absolutely perfect, just this moment in your life where you can just step away from everything and everyone. You've got no responsibilities in this moment, and we are just in this moment. We're not thinking about the past. We're not thinking about the future. We're not thinking about all the things we have to do before the end of the day. We're just in this moment, enjoying it and relaxing in it, in this tranquil space, hearing the birds, smelling the flowers, maybe hearing the little bit of a breeze going through the trees. Nothing violent, nothing strong, just little wisps of sound that just punctuate the silence and the tranquility. And you've got a drink beside you. You've got a nice cool glass of water, and you have a little sip of it, and you can feel the cold water on your tongue, and you feel it go down your throat as you swallow it. It's so delicious, and it revives you and makes you feel wonderful. It's just what you needed on this day to quench your thirst. And then you decide you're going to stand up from the swing, and you're going to take your shoes off and walk on the grass. You can feel the lovely soft grass bounce under your feet, because this is really healthy grass. No weeds in this one. And you can feel it just gently tickling the bottoms of your feet as you step on it, but cushioning you at the same time, making you feel totally grounded. And you walk around the grass, you walk around the garden, looking at the flowers, looking at all of the beautiful colours, and it just makes you want to smile. And so you smile. You stretch your mouth into a lovely, big, beaming smile. And as you do that, you start to feel all of those chemicals easing into your body. All of those coping chemicals making you feel really good, really happy. And maybe there's even a little oxytocin as well, a little bit of that love chemical that makes you feel just a little bit giddy. And you touch the petals of the roses and they feel so soft and velvety, and they're so beautiful. And you pick one off and you smell it, and it's so fragrant. And you crush it in your hand, and even more of that fragrance releases itself to you. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's a beautiful day. You look up and you see the sun shining. The sky is perfectly blue. You might hear a little aeroplane in the air, just a small one. Maybe somebody's up there enjoying the view from a height. It doesn't distract you. It doesn't take away from the tranquility of the scene. It's just what you tend to hear on these beautiful summer days. And you feel so good because you have nowhere to be, nothing to do, nobody to answer to, no obligations. All you've got is rest and relaxation. And as you smile and as you feel those chemicals flooding your body, you feel your batteries recharging. You feel yourself getting more and more motivated, more and more tranquil, more feeling that you can cope with whatever life throws at you. And as you do that, you feel the heaviness in your shoulders start to alleviate itself. Your shoulders, which have been heavy with worry, heavy with stress, heavy with obligations and tasks, too much to do. You start to feel a weight lifting off your shoulders, lifting gently. And you feel you're even a little bit buoyant. Like if you weren't totally grounded on the grass, you might float a little bit because the weight has been so significant and the contrast is phenomenal that you now don't feel that weight on your shoulders. And what have you done? Why has this happened, you wonder? What did you do to cause the stress to disappear and the weight to be lifted from your shoulders? You're not sure. So you start to think about it. And you realise that this space has helped you to be calm and to let go of the things that you can't control. All of that weight on your shoulders has been lifted because you're sitting in this tranquil space. You're allowing yourself to feel the grass under your feet. A bit cold at first, and then it warms up as your feet stay there, but just so refreshing. That you've rocked on the swing, that you've just had this lovely gentle swing. You've had a taste of cold water. You've listened to the birds, which you don't often do, and you realise that they're there all the time. You just don't notice them when you're full of stress. And you've smelt the flowers, which again, the flowers are always there for you to enjoy, but you don't enjoy them because in the foreground you've got all of the things that you have to do, and all of those things create a mask that hide from you all of the wonderful things that you can focus upon instead, and actually find a way to give yourself more motivation, give yourself more charge in your batteries so that you can carry on and you can manage so much better. So now you're taking off this mask and looking at the things that you take for granted every day. The sunshine, a nice drink of cold water on a warm day, gently swinging, creating a tiny breeze as you sit and relax. The motion just really self-soothing. The birds singing. The fragrance of the flowers and all of the colours that are created in the flowers, and all of the wildlife around you that just makes you realise that this is a constant cycle that you can enjoy at any time. And this is rejuvenating for you. And you might even go back and swing a bit more, maybe close your eyes and just take everything in from your senses. And what's happening in your brain is the release of coping chemicals that make you feel so much better. Make you feel that you can cope with things even when they're hard. Even when you feel overwhelmed and burned out, you realise that these moments, these small moments which seem so insignificant, can actually help you to recharge your batteries and make you feel better. You look back to the past and remember happy memories, times when you've done wonderful things. Maybe you have a special memory. Maybe it's your wedding day. Maybe it's the birth of your children. Maybe it's when you really succeeded at something. Maybe it's when you first fell in love. Those things are going to, again, release the chemicals that help you cope and remind you that you've had better times, and better times are coming, so that you can now look forward past the stress to a time when it's not there anymore, and you'll feel better and you'll be enjoying your best life because you've got through it. You've not avoided it, you've not masked it, but you've got through it and you've gone past it, and you will feel stronger and more capable, and you'll be more resilient as a result of this. You are so much more than the weight on your shoulders. Imagine yourself now shaking off the weight of your shoulders and feeling so much better for it, and ready to face the day with more resilience and motivation. If it's time for bed, then just roll over and go to sleep and have wonderful dreams. If you've got to get up and carry on with your day, slowly stretch, open your eyes if they're closed, and get ready to carry on with your day, feeling so much better, so much lighter as a result of this short moment of taking time to look after yourself. I hope you've enjoyed this month's podcast. If there's something you'd like me to cover in future sessions, please let me know. I'm happy to put something together for you. Next month, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to have a guest on the podcast. I'm not going to give too much away. It's a bit of a surprise. But I'm going to have somebody talking about their experience of resilience when life's been pretty difficult. Have a wonderful month of May. Look for the good things. Take time for yourself. Do things that make you feel better. Remember, positive action, positive interaction, positive thinking. Until next time, take care.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.